Well, this wasn't the video that I was planning to upload about crystal skulls, but my profound experience is taking me on a journey that I didn't expect, and it turned my view of skulls on its head. Hi, I'm Dawn from the International College of Energy Healing, and today's video is all about crystal skulls, the history, the legends, and my experiences of working with this guy. Now, I've never really been into crystal skulls. I worked with one briefly a few years ago, which was pretty cool, had a cool experience with it, but I haven't been drawn to work with any skulls since. However, I decided to shoot a crystal skull video after making contact with a skull that we've had for sale in the shop for a while. It was last Sunday. I was teaching crystal therapy, and as the students were practicing their techniques, the skull was catching my eye, and I could hear a resonant voice saying hello. And it was at that moment I made a decision to do a video about the history and the legend, and then tried to work with the skull so I could share my experiences. I didn't really expect to experience what I did, and I'm excited to share this with you in the video. It really has been a game changer for me. So before I get into that, I want to talk about the history and the legend of crystal skulls and why they're so popular. Maybe you haven't been swept up with these skull phenomena and don't know much about them, or maybe you do. I have to say it's a fascinating story full of mystery and intrigue, which sometimes stretches your imagination. Crystal skulls are shrouded in legend and prophecy, and they've captured the imagination of millions of people across the world. Even some famous people like Dan Aykroyd from the Ghostbusters fame and actress Shirley MacLaine. I think there are very few stronger images around than a skull. They somehow trigger a fascination within us regarding life and death. It's a stark reminder that the features that give us our uniqueness will be gone when we make our transition, and perhaps our skull will only be the piece that endures from our physical remains over time. Over the last few decades, spiritual seekers, New Age practitioners, and crystal lovers can't get enough of skulls. But are they more than just beautiful objects to look at? So skulls are known to have been used in ritual by ancient cultures. In fact, they're still used today by many pagan practitioners. According to archaeological and historical research, the skull was viewed as a source of power, so naturally it became an object of worship. Its magical value came from the fact that it was supposed to be the centre of life. Among the Celts, for example, the head was the container of a sacred force, whereas in other ancient and traditional cultures, the head is conceived of as the seat of vital energy, the active principle of the whole individual. From such beliefs came headhunting rituals, the offering of skulls, sacrifice and veneration of ancestor skulls, as well as being seen as a talisman. So yes, it does have a somewhat grisly history, but also a venerated container for wisdom. So let's look at the prophecies. This is what captured our hearts with these skulls. So the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Native Americans, and other indigenous tribes are said to all have legends about 13 life-size crystal skulls, which, when discovered, will share information about the origins and the destiny of humankind. One day, it's said, at a time of great need, all the crystal skulls will be rediscovered and brought together to reveal their message for humanity. There are several famous crystal skulls, either in museums or private collections. For some, they are no more than modern carvings with no ancient origins at all, and for others, they are ancient artifacts and one of the 13 skulls with supernatural abilities. The question is, who's correct? Have the skulls been emerging in the last few hundred years? When I first shot this video, my research was concluding, at least for me, that many of the skulls were not the ancient artifacts they claimed to be. Some had very dubious origins, and some were tested and proved to be modern fakes. I was skeptical at best, if I'm honest. However, as I was exploring each of the crystal skulls and diving into their history, I came across one skull, Max, who shook my world to the core and is the reason why I totally changed my perspective. He was the catalyst for a profound experience with the skull I was working with and forced me to reshoot this video. More on Max later. As I said before, there are several well-known crystal skulls that are said to be part of the 13 life-sized skulls of legend. Their history and provenance is controversial at best. Despite this, they continue to hold the imagination of thousands, if not millions of people around the world who believe in their power. According to the people who claim to have discovered the skulls, they date back thousands, even tens of thousands of years to ancient Mesoamerican civilizations such as the Aztecs or the Mayans. Then there is the scientific and the archaeological community who are very skeptical. They point to a number of reasons why they believe that these are not the genuine articles. So firstly, they say none were discovered during documented digs. Secondly, examination has concluded that they were made by modern tools not available in pre-Columbian times. And thirdly, they don't resemble known Aztec artwork and how they would have depicted skulls. Now, if you do an internet search, there are many crystal skulls out there that claim to be ancient and possessing supernatural abilities, including talking, singing, simulation of psychic vision, past life recall, channeling, moving, glowing eyes, images appearing within the skulls themselves, and spontaneous healing, to name a few. There are videos and books attesting to their power and their provenance. As I said before, opinion is divided on the authenticity of these life-size skulls. 3 museum pieces, one in the British Museum of Mankind in London, one in the Smithsonian Institute and one in the Paris Museum, were thought to be ancient Aztec artifacts, but after extensive testing, they found to have had modern tool marks, causing them to be reclassified as modern fakes. Now, interesting to note though, I did find accounts from people, including security guards at the British Museum, who reported strange occurrences happening around the skull that's held there. Now, one of the struggles to authenticate a skull is dating. It's near impossible as quartz crystal cannot be carbon dated. So the only way is to look at microscopic tool marks. Several of the private collection skulls have been tested by the Museum of Mankind, and apparently, according to them, the museum has not been able to find the same tool marks on them. Despite this, they remain skeptical on the origins of the skulls. Private collectors who are the caretakers of these skulls claim that they were used in ancient ritual for divination and healing by Mayans and Aztecs and Tibetan monks. They claim to hold the wisdom of these cultures, and some believe they have even more ancient roots to Atlantis and even extraterrestrial worlds. However, impossible to prove and a matter of personal belief. As I say, there are quite a large number of skulls out there claiming to be ancient, and probably the most famous is Shonara, the Mitchell Hedges skull, Armar, and finally Max. And it was my research into the skull known as Max that totally changed my opinion and kick-started a set of bizarre experiences with the smoky quartz crystal skull that I brought home from the shop. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into a couple of those skulls. So let's start with Shonara. So this comes directly from the Shonara website, which I'll link in the description below. The crystal skull Shonara, named for a shaman guide, is made of clear quartz. It's claimed to have been discovered in an archaeological dig in Mexico using psychometry by a professor of parapsychology and pioneer in crystal skull research. Fr. Nick Nocerino, according to the website. He was in central Mexico when he was asked to use his paranormal powers to pinpoint locations where artifacts would be found. And he performed psychometry, so the touching of the area that was being dug, and he reached a spot and told them to dig there. At that spot, they found a terracotta basket, and inside it was the crystal skull. The website goes on to say that shonara is one of the few crystal skulls in the world that has been scientifically examined and proven to be truly ancient. According to them, it was examined by the British Museum and no tool marks were found. The skull now resides in California with Nocerino's daughter, who hosts events with the skull. So let's talk about the skull of love. So this skull has an equally interesting discovery story attached to it. It's almost from the Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom movie. This skull is also known as the Mitchell Hedges skull due to the name of the person who discovered it, or previously it was known as the Skull of Doom. The story of the skull starts in the Yucatan with British adventurer Frederick Mitchell Hedges, who was on expedition there in 1924 to look for evidence of Mayan civilizations. He was headed for an ancient Mayan city in what is now modern-day Belize, when they came upon an ancient Mayan pyramid in the jungle. The expedition team went in, and Mitchell Hedges' daughter Anna discovered it in there, a gleaming crystal skull fashioned out of a solid piece of clear quartz crystal. However, researchers suggest that Mitchell Hedges was given to fanciful notions and weaving outrageous tales that were part fantasy and part truth. His credibility was questioned and the veracity of his claims doubted. In some of his communications, the story of how it was found does differ somewhat from the story, casting doubt as to what was the truth. But despite this, Mitchell Hedges' daughter herself maintains she found the skull as described right up until her death in 2007. According to the Crystal Skull website, the skull is at least 3,600 years old, and according to legend was used by the high priest of the Maya when performing esoteric rites, and it now resides with Anne's husband Bill Hoffman. No doubt the skull has made an impact on many people, and there are accounts of people having been affected in the skull's presence. In fact, Hoffman himself reports to weird feelings when he's around the skull. According to Mitchell Hedges himself, several people who laughed at the skull have died, others have been stricken and became seriously ill, and because of this, he called the Skull of Doom. Although now the skull is referred to as the Skull of Love, and according to Hoffman on the skull's own website, he says, "I believe the main message is one of universal love. The skull works to open the heart of man to help us realize that we are all connected. All human life, all animal life, all plant life, all mineral life, thought universal love on this planet. When we come to this knowledge and understanding, we'll be able to make a quantum leap in consciousness to a future of higher knowledge and love. I can get behind that." So now I'm excited to introduce you to Max. So Max is a 16-pound quartz skull who's at least 10,000 years old. By some estimates, he was used by Mayan priests for healing and prayer. The British Museum is said to consider Max to be one of the rarest artefacts ever found. Joanne Parks, who is the skull's caretaker, was given Max more than 31 years ago by a powerful healer from a Tibetan sect known as the Red Hat Lamas. His parting words to her when he gave her the skull, to her and her husband, were, "Take care of this, and one day you'll know what it's for and what it's about." Now, although she didn't know then how Max was going to change her life, in the years that followed, Joanna shared many, many fascinating things, including what some might call miracles. People who sit with Max are said to experience healings, visions, improved psychic abilities, speaking with or seeing loved ones who've crossed over, having a sense of extreme bliss, and much more. According to Joanne, Max reignites the love and compassion in us all and can bring about profound healing in people. Joanne herself has experienced profound healing following the death of her daughter. Max, she says, brought her out of the darkness. I don't know what it is about Max, but when I set eyes on him, my whole body shivered. I felt his energy through the internet. His presence in my body was literally vibrating. And out of all of the crystal skulls I researched, this one feels like the genuine article. And this is where it gets really interesting. So I'm going to talk about the connection with Max and the crystal skull I'd started to work with. But before I do, there are quite a few more famous skulls around the world, which you can find quite easily by doing some internet research. And I'd highly recommend the website crystalskulls.com, as they've done a really great job of putting all of that research together along with the history and the legends, so I would check that out. So let's bring this back to working with skulls today. So crystal skulls are said to hold energy and information like a computer that records everything that it has ever witnessed. So they're made out of quartz, which we know has the ability to store, charge and emit energy. So that's not a far leap for me. Now they're also said to transmit and share this energy and information with other crystal skulls, almost like a download. And they say that the more that you work with a crystal skull, the more activated and energized it becomes. Now, working with crystal skulls is a very personal thing, and you probably will experience what you and your skull are meant to experience. And they also have their own unique personality, which I can attest to. Now, my process of connecting with a skull has evolved during my research for this video. However, I have always liked to lie down and to place the skull over my heart, staring directly into the eyes, eye sockets, so that I can make a connection. According to Jaap van Etten and his book on crystal skulls called Crystal Skulls and Expand Your Consciousness, sculptors of crystal skulls in Brazil have told him that they experience a consciousness shift as soon as they carve the eye sockets of the skull image. So it stands to reason that we start our connection there. So this is what I did with the smoky quartz skull that I was working with. I laid down and I made a connection. When I felt energy flowing, I closed my eyes and it was very, very peaceful. Now I realized I could hear North American flute music playing inside my head on the right-hand side. It was very pleasant, and then I drifted off to sleep. So that was my first experience of working with the smoky quartz skull, and before I discovered Max. As I was researching, I found some information about connecting and activating a skull. It's said to ask for the skull to be connected to the crystal skull consciousness, or to place the skull on the image of an activated skull. So after my Max experience, I decided to activate Old Smokey, as I started to refer to him as, using Max. I printed out an image of Max, I placed Old Smokey on top, and I looked directly at him. I then asked for him to be connected to the crystal skull consciousness known as Max. Wow, the connection was instant, and it was like I was zapped by a bolt of electricity. My eyes shot open, but everything looked the same, and it was really, really weird. I closed my eyes again and immediately got a flow of communication from my skull. It was like a big download, and here's the gist of what he said during this first download. So he said, like Max, he embodies the vibration of love, and he's here to work with the community, to heal, to inspire, and to remind us that we are powerful beyond measure. He then asked for us not to sell him, because he wants to work with us to facilitate community gatherings, one-to-one sessions, and participate in the healing work that we do at the shop. So we feel honoured for him to want to stay with us, and he's going to remain with us. He then asked me to place him in the sun in blue glass with distilled water to create crystal essences of him, as these will be used to create elixirs for healing. So I did just that, and here's a picture of him bathing. He's in a beautiful blue glass bowl that was gifted to me. It has First Nation patterns around it, and it's beautiful. And he spent the morning in the water before I decanted the water into a blue glass mason jar. And I will be making some elixirs over the coming week. Now, he also asked us to hold evenings with people at the shop. So meditation evenings and opportunities for people to connect and to download information to help them with their healing journey. He asked that we work with a beautiful crystal one that was gifted to us last year. It's a symbol of divine feminine, as this one's been used in many goddess activations. So he told me that we would know how to work with him and the one together. So male and female, bringing balance and healing. Next, he asked me to find ways to give him a voice. So we talked about the possibility of having a ghost box, a spirit box session to see if he could bring his voice physically into the room, so tangibly. And I'm super excited about that, and we'll be experimenting with this over the next few weeks and months. So wow, profound experience, and one that totally changed my thoughts and feelings about crystal skulls. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second that this smoky quartz skull is one of the 13 ancient skulls. I know his provenance. The quartz originates from Brazil, and he was carved in India within the last decade. However, he is totally connected to the skull consciousness and seems to have a relationship with Max, and he embodies love. An energy vibration that is important to me, and I believe is the one that will save humanity. So really the journey has just begun, and I'm really super excited about it. I'm not sure what this will look like and how it will unfold, but I know it will reveal itself, and we'll share it with you every step of the way. So whether these are in-person events, channeled information or videos. So for now, I'm going to leave you with some images of this beautiful crystal skull. Who knows, you might have your own experience, and if you do, I'd love to hear about it. Either pop a comment below, or you can email me directly, and I will leave my email address in the description box. And of course, as always, if you like these videos, do subscribe and hit the bell, and you'll be notified as soon as we upload a new one. There will be more to come on this beautiful crystal skull, and you can like our Facebook page to find out some more information of events that might be occurring in the future. And I will leave all of that information in the description box. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.